All right, hello there, thrill seekers. That was a little snip of a video I just put up this morning. Actually, I recorded the video portion of it this morning. The song is called Everybody's Truckin'. I first encountered it under a different title, which was Everybody's Doing It, and it appears in a movie called, what was the movie called? Hollywood Boulevard, which I saw at the Strand Theater in Wadsworth, Ohio when I was in high school. And the version I saw was by Commander Cody and his Lost Planet Airmen, but it's actually a cover of a 1937 song by the Modern Mountaineers, and you can find it on YouTube. And those are the words, even in the 1937 version. So there you go. And if you haven't watched the whole video, you don't know what I mean, so go watch the whole video. So today I thought I'd do a quick video. I hope it'll be quick. And maybe maybe this will be a theme. This is kind of an idea I was toying with, and if people like it, maybe I'll do more, which is books that I like. Now, I should mention, first off, that I am not in the habit of reading books about Buddhism or Zen or spirituality just for the fun of it. Let me show you what I'm reading right now. I'm about a third of the way through this, I Want You Around, which is a book about the making of the Ramones movie Rock and Roll High School. Actually, it was Rock and Roll High School was made by the same people that made that movie I just referenced, Hollywood Boulevard. And it came up in this book, and that's why I went back and looked at that song and then ended up doing a cover. The book I read before that was Now You're One of Us, the story of Red Cross, the band Red Cross, one of my favorite bands. And then before that, what I was reading was Never Understood, the autobiography of Jesus and Mary Chain by William and Jim Reed, who are the key members of Jesus and Mary Chain, another one of my favorite bands. So I just don't read Zen books, sitting around having fun reading a Zen book. I used to years and years ago, but mostly when I read Zen books these days, it feels like work. I'm usually reading not even the whole book. I'm usually reading a certain passage of a certain book, often a book I've read before, to make sure I get it right in order to write about it or to talk about it on this video channel. But the one I wanted to introduce you to today is a book that I sometimes pick up and read just for the heck of it because I kind of enjoy it. It is the Zen Teaching of Huang Po, and the translator is John Blofeld. And it says, the subtitle here is On the Transmission of Mind. And I like this book. Let me tell you a little bit about my association with this book. This was one of the books that Tim, my first Zen teacher, had on his bookshelf. And, I probably looked at it every once in a while. But as far as I can recall, Ziggy, what are you barking at? Hold on, let's see what Ziggy's barking at. Ziggy, what you barking at? See, this is what I got to do with Ziggy. If he starts barking at something, he wants me to go check it out. And so I had to get up and go look out the window and tell him, no, I don't see anybody out there. So he seems to be satisfied, although he's still kind of looking around with his mouth half open. Anyway, as far as I can recall, I never read this book, like from cover to cover or anything. I read a few of Tim's books, but I don't remember reading this one. Of course, I might have, because my memory is lousy. My memory of my introduction to this book is actually fairly recent. I think about 10 years ago, I was leading some class about Zen, probably in Los Angeles. I don't really recall exactly the scene, but somebody had brought this in and read a little passage from it, and I was like, oh, that's real good. I want to go check that book out. So I went and got a copy and I looked at it. And it was then that I realized that Huang Po is actually Obaku. So for those of you who don't understand Japanese and Chinese, the Japanese language is written in a combination of Chinese characters, mostly Chinese characters, and then native Japanese characters that are kind of in between the Chinese characters. And the deal is that at some point in the past, like 1,000 years ago or something, I think it was around 1,000 years ago, maybe more. Anyway, a long time ago, the Japanese realized, hey, those Chinese people across the sea, they have a writing system, but we don't. So let's try to use their writing system to write our language. Well, the Japanese language and the Chinese language are so vastly different that attempting to write Japanese with Chinese characters would be just about the same level of difficulty as trying to write English or French or German with Chinese characters. I'm serious. So they had to invent this whole bizarre way of using the Chinese characters, and it's all very fascinating, and I'm tempted to go off on a tangent about it, but you probably don't want to hear that. If you do, let me know. I could do a whole video about that. But this resulted in, as far as when you're studying Zen is concerned, the most important result of that is that often the Chinese Zen masters mentioned in Japanese texts, if they're translated by somebody who's translating them from Japanese, they'll often have a different name. So Huang Po became Obaku because of the different ways that the Japanese pronounce the Chinese characters. And so Dogen praises Huang Po to the skies in several places in Shobogenzo, but I didn't realize he was praising the guy who wrote this book because he always calls him Obaku, and I never saw any books, the Zen teachings of Obaku. So I didn't make the connection because I just kind of, I just didn't make the connection that Obaku and Huang Po were the same people. But Huang Po was a big influence on Dogen's philosophy. So that's one of the reasons that you might be interested in this if you're interested in what I talk about. Another thing I find interesting about this book is the intro, okay? So this book was first published in 1958. And it's still, I'm not sure if it's still in print, but it's easy to find because, and I think it is still in print in a different cover. Go check Amazon or somewhere. Go check your local bookstore. That would be even better to see if they can get you one. But since it came out in 1958, that means that it's the intro is kind of from the kind of 50s way of understanding what Zen was. And this is not, I just reread it just before making this video, and it's not wrong. I don't find anything particularly mistaken in the introduction, but it's kind of just a different way of looking at things. Because at the time, Zen wasn't this big buzzword in America. I mean, the beatniks and some people like that had picked up on it and were talking about Zen man, and wearing their black berets and stuff like that. But it wasn't as ubiquitous as it is now. And there were no Zen centers in America at the time. There was no place you could really go and study and practice Zen. I mean, okay, when I say there was no place, there might have been a few places here and there, but they certainly weren't these big giant centers like we have now. So I like that introduction because it gives me kind of a sense of where this comes from and how it was not that long ago. Like, I don't know. For you kids today, the 1950s probably sounds like the prehistoric era. But I was born in 1964. My first Zen teacher was born in 1954. So I imagine this was one of his formative books about Zen. This is probably one of the few books a guy his age, when he was a teenager, could have come across and read about Zen. So that is very interesting too, just the kind of point of view that John Blofeld takes on it. Now there are a couple of more contemporary versions of this same text. Let me go and grab them. One is A Bird in Flight Leaves No Trace, Son Master Subul, translated by Robert E. Buswell. So he's a Korean Zen master. Son means the same thing as Zen. And his student, I guess, maybe an American, I'm not sure. Somebody Western translated it. This book came out in 2014, so it's much more recent. I like this one because it includes the Chinese characters in the text side by side. So because I can read Japanese, I can read some of the Chinese characters and I can kind of get a good look at it. But I actually kind of prefer the Blofeld version to this one. This is a nice supplement, I think, and it's a good book, and I also recommend it as something to study. But this one kind of, well, what Son Master Subul, I guess that's how we pronounce it, does in this is he gives a line-by-line commentary. So you're stopping Huang Po's words sentence by sentence and then getting like a page or so of Som Master Subul's commentary on it. Whereas in this one, it's pretty much straight up Huang Po. And the translations are really similar. There's hardly any difference at all. There are a couple other translations. One of them I found, I don't even understand where this one came from, but I saw it on the internet one day, and it's somebody else's translation. This one also includes the Chinese. This one I got before the one I just showed you, and mainly the selling point for me was the Chinese being in it. Again, the translation is not that different, although, again, I prefer Blofeld's translation. Let me just read you the very beginning of the book. Okay, Huang Po himself never wrote anything. And Huang Po himself, as reported in this book, was not too fond of the idea of somebody producing a book or a written version of his speeches. He preferred to speak to people directly, and he thought that was the only way to transmit what he understood about Buddhism, about Zen, and all of this. And he thought that if you wrote it down and then kind of passed it on later to somebody who he hadn't actually met, it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't carry the impact. It wouldn't be correct. But sometime when he was quite old, he relented and let somebody take a bunch of notes about the things that he was saying. And then after Huang Po died, I think this was after Huang Po died, a bunch of Huang Po's students looked over the notes by Pei Xiu, I think that's how you pronounce his name, who had made the notes, and added their corrections and whatnot according to the way they remembered and understood Huang Po. And then that was later translated into English, and this is what we get. So it's kind of the fragments or the dregs or the leftovers of something is what you're getting here. You're not getting the direct thing. Whereas Dogen wrote his own stuff, unlike the Monkees. Oh God, people probably won't get that reference. The Monkees, the famous band of the 60s, for the most part didn't write or play their own stuff because they were a band put together for a TV show, although they did write and play some of their own stuff, but mostly it was written and played by other people and then sung by them. But anyway, so that's kind of Huang Po. Because it's written down by somebody else. Dogen wrote his own stuff, like the Beatles, okay? So when you're reading Dogen, you're actually reading stuff that he intended to be written, intended to be read by people who he probably would never meet. So it's a different sort of thing. And I said I would read you some of it, so I'm going to read you the beginning. This is the first thing that appears after the preface by Pei Xiu, okay? So here it goes. The master said to me, this is Pei Xiu speaking, and then now he's quoting Huang Po. All the Buddhas and all sentient beings are nothing but the one mind, besides which nothing exists. This mind, which is without beginning, is unborn and indestructible. It is not green nor yellow, it has neither form nor appearance, it does not belong to the categories of things which exist or do not exist, nor can it be thought of in terms of new or old. It is neither long nor short, big nor small, for it transcends all limits, measures, names, traces, and comparisons. It is that which you see before you. Begin to reason about it, and you will at once fall into error. It is like the boundless void which cannot be fathomed or measured. The one mind alone is the Buddha, and there is no distinction between the Buddha and sentient beings. That's us. But the sentient beings are attached to forms and so seek externally for Buddhahood, and so on and so forth. So the first portion of the book is Pei Xiu's recollection of lectures he heard from Huang Po, and then the second part of the book is kind of Q&A between different students of Huang Po and Huang Po. So they're asking him questions and he's answering them. And that is the complete record. And as you can see, it's kind of short. There's not much. Whereas Dogen's complete works fill multiple volumes. So there's 4 volumes of my teacher's English translation of Shobogenzo, plus Eihei Koroku, plus what's the other one? There's a Shobogenzo Zui Monkey, and which was not written by him, but is more like this, was his recollection by his students. And there's Shinji Shobogenzo, which is a collection of koans that Dogen got in China. So there's a lot of stuff, is the point of that. But there's not a lot of stuff from Huang Po. So I just find it gives me a nice feeling to read Huang Po. That's why it's one of the few that I'll pick up and read just because I enjoy it and not because I'm studying it for any particular reason. It's very similar philosophically in many ways to Nisargadatta Maharaj, who was a Hindu guy whose main book is I Am That. And his student Ramesh Balsekar noticed the similarity between Huang Po and Nisargadatta Maharaj, and he wrote a book about it called something like Advaita and Zen, which I have up on the shelf somewhere. So he compares and contrasts the two philosophies, and he finds that Huang Po is very similar to Nisargadatta Maharaj, and I have to agree, it's pretty similar, but it's not quite the same. Dogen, who came along a few hundred years later, so I forgot to mention, this Huang Po is 9th century, so the 800 ADs, 800 CEs, depending on how you want to say it. Dogen is the 1200s, so that's, 400 years later, more or less, give or take. And it's a further sort of, once you put these ideas out and they get kind of absorbed into the community and people start thinking they know them, then somebody has to come along later and say, no, you're wrong about that. And a lot of what Dogen does is, when he talks about this idea of everything being mind, he is very quick to point out the misconceptions of that, which is the idea that there is mind and there is matter, and the reality is mind and matter is unreality. So Dogen goes to great lengths in many of his essays to say, no, you're getting it wrong, that's not the way it is. When he says everything is mind, he means everything is mind. And you could also say everything is matter, because mind and matter are the same thing ultimately. So yeah, that gets really deep and philosophical, and I want to keep this video short. But that's kind of it. I know I've talked about this book before. I've probably said most of the things I said in this video in other videos if you're a regular watcher. So apologies to you folks out there, but I don't think I ever made a specific video just on this book. And if I did, it wasn't this one. It wasn't this video. I mean, it was this book. Maybe. I don't remember. I don't remember most of my videos. I think my viewers remember my videos a lot better than I do, because people will ask me, like, what did you say in that video 4 years ago? And I've got to go look at the video again, because I have no idea what I said in the video 4 years ago, or 4 months ago, or probably 4 days ago. I don't remember them. Anyway, so sorry, that was just an aside. So anyway, there's you go. This is a book I quite enjoy, the Zen Teachings of Huang Po, as translated by John Blofeld, and go look for it at your local book barn. I'm going to hold it on this side so I can get a screenshot to use as a thumbnail. Let's see. All right, there you go. This will be my screenshot for the thumbnail. All right, there you go. I hope you enjoyed that, and have a good time all the time. Oh, I forgot to say my donation spiel. Okay, if you're looking at this video on YouTube or some other visual medium, you will see the URL that I'm pointing to below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is where you can find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts. Those are my main ways of making a living, and I appreciate your support. But as always, you don't got to support me if you don't want to support me. And those of you who didn't see the URL will now have heard me say what it is. So you got it. All right. We will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Laters. Bye. Hey, Ziggy. Great irony. Somebody was just at the door and you didn't bark at all. How come you missed that one? That was the mail person. All right. I'll go see what the mail was, and then I'll edit my video. Talk to you later, Ziggs. Bye.